Let's start with the roll call.
Dr. Aron,
Here.
Lisa Ramon,
Here.
Kyle Niederman,
Here.
John Maston.
Here.
Please join me in a moment of silent prayer and private reflection. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, spotlights and recognition. Do we have Carol Nowakowski here? Oh, you're just right in time, Carol.
Good evening. We're hoping that everybody's enjoying their summer break. Some of us are doing summer school, so we are continuing through the summer. I wish I had more to say. I know we are finalizing, our budget. It'd be nice if the state had finalized theirs, so we had more to work with. But that is where we're at. I do know that as I drove over here, a lot of signs are popping up. So there are local elections that we need to start maybe focusing and paying attention to. Thursday, I know some of us have an opportunity to listen to school board candidates Thursday night and then again at the end of June. So just stay aware and keep in the know. That's all I have to share.
Great. Thank you, Carol.
Just one thing, the opportunity to hear is actually tomorrow night, Wednesday night.
Is it tomorrow?
It is. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So it is Wednesday, and then the one in June, June 26th or 28th?
June 26th.
26th, there. Thank you.
Do we have any call to the public? Not hearing any. Let's move.
I signed up back there with the sheet. So that's called public, correct? It is.
Yeah.
I just thought somebody would call my name since I signed up, so.
We just didn't get the form up here, but it's our error.
Yeah. Yeah, there's one.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just real short.
So,
Take up the time. You're welcome.
so let me officially call you up. Do we have Karen Vanderjet here?
Yes, I'm here. Okay, I just want to say that it's going to be the 14th year of PACE, Patriotic Americans for Constitutional Education, will be a part of the Lake Havasu Unified School District. We started out 14 years ago with Jamaica School was our first PACE school, and we're still trying to get more schools involved, and we had two schools that had two clubs in that particular, that was Smoke Tree and Havasu Prime. We also reach out to the community, to all schools, charter schools, and private Christian schools, and the Catholic school, everybody's involved. So what I did was I brought you tonight, this is the Patriot Free Press, and I marked page 13, which talks about our program we have at the end of the year, and you'll really find out what PACE is really about. And it's about patriotism, love of country. I don't know if you remember when you were a kid, you go to music classes and sing, "This land is our land, is your land." Remember that? And we really don't do that anymore. There's not that sense of pride. So we sing songs, we have stories, we have all kinds of ways to really get patriotism into our to our children. And I also gave you a copy of our brochure there. And this is the 28 principles of liberty that we ask all of our PACE teachers to sign. They do receive a stipend for being an after-school teacher for half the school year. And then Bill of Rights was our theme last year, so I gave you one of our bookmarks. And I just wanted you to see, this is what our students are earning. These are challenge coins. They're pretty nice. And at the end of the PACE year, each student receives one of these. This was year before, and then this was last year. So we just wanted to let you know we're here, and if there's any way you can encourage teachers to get involved, it's okay if you have a student teacher who wants to do it too. So it doesn't have to be a teacher. So I'm just putting myself up here to just ask you to get people involved and grow our PACE groups. So we have 226 students this year, and it was pretty exciting. I don't know, about 10 teachers? Yeah, so it was pretty exciting. So please read the article that I marked for you, and thank you for letting me take a few minutes of your time.
Thank you, Karen. That was lovely.
And that article is also the assembly was held at the Performing Arts Center. So thank you guys. Very grateful for that.
Awesome. Which we will talk about later.
Yes.
Yes. So moving on to the consent agenda, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as it's stated?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Dr. Ron?
Yes.
Lisa Ramon?
Yes.
Kyle Niederman?
Yes.
John Master?
Yes.
We're moving on to some discussion items. Student achievement course approval process.
Mr. President and Governing Board, so last meeting I was asked to bring back the process that we use for new courses to be submitted, and so I worked on this with the high school principal, and so I just was sharing this back with the board. The current course change request form was updated with the deadline November 1st, and signature lines for department chair, counselor, principal, and student achievement director. All course additions will come before the board before winter break, except in situations that may be required to meet staffing and student needs. A form and process was also created for major course changes that may include additions or deletions of units, novels, and labs. After the requests are made, the school principal is responsible for communicating the status of the requests. Request forms are found in the staff portal and can be accessed by all staff members. The process and updated forms were reviewed, revised, and shared with the superintendent, Lake Havasu High School principal, counselor, department chair, and curriculum coach. The process and forms will be shared with all staff by the Lake Havasu High School principal when staff returns in July.
Discussion.
I move we approve
There's no
5.1
movement.
as,
It's just a discussion item.
Yeah,
Okay.
just come up. Did you have anything you wanted to say about it?
no.
No? Okay. I think that this is a reasonable kind of middle ground. Like, it still helps us with the deadline, helps us get plenty of advanced knowledge of courses that are planned, but it also builds in some flexibility that allowing for the fact that there might be situations that require a last minute change or addition. So I think this is a good sort of compromise between those competing interests.
Yes, and I appreciate it getting into word kind of like the exception situations, kind of clarifying that. I mean, I know as we go, we will see if that's good enough as we go, but just so there's a little bit of clarity out there so folks are knowing this is the process, and really, if we're outside of the process, it needs to be something very serious. That was what was my concern last time, so this has addressed my concern. I also appreciate the information, letting everybody know that the form process that includes additions and deletions of units, novels, and labs is also made public. I think that is, and coming before the board when it does as well, I think that's very important to the community as well. So any other discussion on that? All right, moving on. Discussion item 5.2, Superintendent, LHHS Library.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President and members of the board. Mr. Niederman asked about the library renovations that were done last year and what we were kind of looking at moving forward. So as you know, the library was renovated to accommodate the technology storage and workspace for the one-to-one initiative. And really at that time, we were discussing possible further renovations to create some smaller classroom spaces for students who may be accessing online programs. So currently there's a JTED building or classroom in the back, and that is used. There is space in our library to create additional small classrooms where kids could access online programs. We have students who are on Havasu Online, and sometimes they could benefit from coming into the school and having a space to work. But it's also possible that in the future there'll be online programs offered by universities where kids could then access that as well. So currently our library is used for study hall classes and professional development that happens after school hours and in the summer. The high school did gather information on the use of the library, specifically what's the amount of books checked out this year to determine if it continues to be a need to have the actual physical library with books. A total of only 68 books were checked out from the library this school year. Most of those were in the young adult fiction genre, and specifically at the high school level, with each of our students having a laptop and access to all the necessary course materials, the library is utilized very little for actual checkout of books. Students also have digital access to our public library, and we are considering transforming the library to best meet student needs, including condensing the book collection based on checkout data. So we just wanted to provide that information to you and get your thoughts as we kind of move forward in this discussion.
Discussion.
So I do have a lot of mixed feelings about this proposal. If I joined the board 5.5 years ago, and if you had told me then that I would be considering sort of condensing a library, I don't think I would have believed you, because that's, I'm just a big proponent of libraries, and so reducing the use of one seems just sort of counter to something that I believe in. But I have to admit, based on the data that this high school was able to provide, it doesn't seem like the library is used a lot by students. And I know in the digital age, the days of going to the library and looking through a card catalog and taking an encyclopedia off a shelf, those days are just not here anymore. People are able to do their research mostly online. I guess my only ask would be that if we do go forward with this and we condense the library, that we make sure that we're building a foundation at the elementary and the middle school level. I currently am very happy with what happens at the elementary level, because the kids have built-in time throughout their week to go to the library, and all of our libraries are staffed with very welcoming personnel, so it's a fun thing that the kids get to do. Our staff at the middle school library is also excellent, but the library is often used as a place where students get sent if they've misbehaved, right? Like if they're in a class where there's a substitute teacher and they just cannot handle themselves, they often get sent to the library, or if they get lunch detention or something like that. And so I feel like intentionally or unintentionally, the message there is that a library is a place where you go if you've gotten in trouble. And so I would like to see, especially now that we have 6 periods at the middle school instead of 5, I would like some time, if possible, set aside for kids to spend at the library in like a pleasant environment. It's not because they're not there because they've done anything wrong. They're just there to visit. Maybe someone reads to them, or they just have time to explore, but something that builds that culture of a library and books, and being in a room like that is a welcoming space for them. That's my request.
I wanted to give Kyle a chance. I know he requested this last time. Do you have anything to discuss on this, Kyle?
No, absolutely. I would say that the library is definitely very important. I also would state that it would be very important to be relevant to who we're actually talking to. We have some students that, if they've grown up in technology, they don't know what is going on with libraries. They don't know how to use a library. They don't know how to use some of the things. I think it's important to try to be relative and try to control the narrative as well. So.
I wanted to add a few things too. I don't know that you all know kind of what our library's system is like. Basically right now, we do not have librarians in any of the libraries. We have media assistants. There's a lot of red tape that goes along with having a librarian, and we haven't had librarians for years in the library. In fact, right now, if you're the person who's in charge of the book collection at each school is the principal. So if there's any requests on books and things like that, it's going to the principal and not necessarily the librarians or the media assistants there. A lot has happened in the last few years with COVID, so I don't know that we can rely on the data to make that decision. I think we have to rely on the community to make a decision on this. We've done that very well with curriculum. We did it very well with when you get old, you have these brain farts. When we brought it to, it was curriculum, it was the portrait of a graduate. What are some other things that we did? The what?
Bond and override.
Yeah, the bond and override, and there were a couple other things, but it was more about process and, curriculum and
Facility use manual.
the facility use
Well,
manual.
kids, do they understand the Dewey Decimal System? Are they using the Dewey Decimal System?
Well, maybe the thing is, do they need to understand the Dewey Decimal
Do they need to
System?
understand
Yeah.
it? Are we doing that? And are we being accurate to the subjects that we're actually trying to reach?
So,
That's
yeah.
my biggest question.
Yeah, and I think that's a bigger conversation for the community. I would like to see us do something like we've done in the past and have community meetings to discuss where libraries are going in the future, get some data, because it's changing with technology what libraries are. We'd like to find out what other schools are doing in the same. Does it fit for us? And then kind of go from there. I think that would be what I would like to see instead of us kind of having a decision.
What we can do along that line is what we did with the override and the bond. That's how we have meetings at each school. We have somebody run those meetings who is not a school district member. And maybe we can get actual good data from the community that way.
Yeah, so I guess what I would say is I would look for you all to come up with a process for engaging the community on this.
Sure.
And then move forward from there during this upcoming year.
Right.
I wanted to say one more thing because I feel like I was a little bit negative about the middle school. Kids do get to request that they go, if they would like to go down to the library and look at a book, they can request that. I didn't mean to sound so negative about the middle school, but just in general, I would like that culture building to be expanded.
Absolutely. Well, we're happy to put some meetings together and see what our community thinks about libraries. And we are talking specifically at the high school. We are not talking about doing away with libraries as a whole district or anything like that. We are talking specifically about the high school level.
And you said there were 68 books that were checked out this year? Is that what I heard?
Yes.
And most of
So
them were
kids
Harry
aren't
Potter.
using the system.
There was a lot of Harry
in place.
Potter.
They're using technology and they're using other avenues to figure out the technology, correct?
Yes. Agreed.
Yes, we think so.
And this might also pave the way for a partnership with the Mojave County Library. Maybe there can be like a library card drive so that kids who do want to still go to a brick and mortar library and check out actual books, I would assume that most of them do know that the public library exists, but that might be a way of like making sure that they think of that as a resource.
And I do think that's one of the things we try to do probably more at the elementary level, but I think it's a great thing for kids to go home and say, I have the opportunity to get this library card. Their parents can choose to take them and do things with them there. I like that whole interaction. Okay.
So we're good with that. Let's move on to our action items. So 6.1, student achievement, school fees.
Mr. President and Governing Board, Policy 5214 and ARS 15342 grants school districts and governing boards the power to approve course, activity, and program fees for extracurricular and/or fine arts vocational courses. Fees for these courses will be used to purchase equipment and material beyond what is required to successfully complete basic requirements of other courses. Policy 5214 and ARS 15342 also grants the school principal the authority to waive or reduce fees if they present an economic hardship for the student. Lake Havasu High School and Thunderbolt Middle School request the following fees to be assessed for participation in extracurricular programs, high school fine arts and vocational courses, and parking. I do want to note that the fees that are being charged for courses over the past 2 years have dramatically increased. And so last year we made sure that there were no fees associated with anything other than fine arts, CTE, and extracurriculars. And then we went through line by line this year with Marcia Becker from CTE and Mr. Becker and asked for line by line what is actually being spent per student. And we will continue to do that each year as we bring fees forward. The other thing that I wanted to share, will you go back to Thunderbolt? Currently, Thunderbolt, the high school extracurricular activities are $400 across the board. You pay it once. Thunderbolt is different, that it's $200, but it's $100 if it's Spirit Line for different seasons. And so we are going, they would like for next year, not this upcoming year, but for FY26, they would just like it to be $200 across the board. And for the entire year. So that's something that they are looking toward. I wanted to share that early on.
And I just want to share that the high school did a really good job, Mr. and Mrs. Becker, working with Dr. Festadegel. This list right here is significantly reduced from the list that was originally provided to us. So they really did a good job of saying, is this really necessary? And if it's not, it came off the list. So I appreciate this reduced list.
Do I have discussion or motion?
I'll move to approve 6.1.
I'll second.
I'll second it.
Stare down.
The only thing that I wanted to point out is that there is the option to reduce or waive the fee completely if it poses a hardship. But this isn't a fee that will prevent anyone from taking a class.
Yes.
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 6.2 Student Services, Leader in Me Expansion K-12.
Thank you, Dr. Ron and members of the board. In June 2023, the governing board approved Leader in Me to be used as a supplementary character education program at Thunderbolt Middle School. Leader in Me is an evidence-based comprehensive model that builds leadership and life skills in students, creates a high-trust school culture, and lays the foundation for sustained academic achievement. There are over 5,000 Leader in Me schools in all 50 states and over 50 countries. The program supports leadership, responsibility, accountability, problem solving, and adaptability skills that are transferable as life and academic skills. Leader in Me was developed using Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and is grounded in the premise that every person is a leader. Thunderbolt implementation for the 23-24 school year resulted in a reduction of discipline referrals from 1,137 referrals in 22-23 to 443 in the 23-24 school year. Overall, the program significantly impacted Thunderbolt's campus, building positive connections between students and teachers, explicitly teaching character traits, and increasing student goal setting. Staff reported that students now start their day in a more positive frame of mind, focused on intentional goals. Elementary school counselors began implementing the Toolbox curriculum in the 2020-2021 school year. This year, they requested an additional resource for character education. Lessons from 3 different programs, Character Strong, Character Counts, and Leader in Me, were piloted at the elementary level. Feedback from the students, counselors, and teachers was reviewed with Leader in Me, garnering the most support for implementation. At Lake Havasu High School, Rachel's Challenge has been utilized since the 2017-2018 school year, which focused on chain reaction, a week-long event for sophomores. This year, the high school has expressed other options that impact all students and the overall culture of the school. Character Strong HEAR, which is Helping Everyone Achieve Respect, and Leader in Me were reviewed for possible implementation. Leader in Me was selected for approval as it provides the most comprehensive program focused on improving school culture and student leadership, and students would be more prepared with the content already being introduced and taught at Thunderbolt. Leader in Me is approved by the Arizona Department of Education and was selected based on feedback from school-based staff, proven implementation at Thunderbolt, pricing, and alignment across multiple settings. The expansion of this curriculum will support our mission to provide an aligned and guaranteed curriculum with equally aligned supplemental material for every student. Students will experience a more cohesive, focused K-12 on leadership, responsibility, accountability, problem solving, and adaptability. Leader in Me implementation will cost $70,236.40, which includes an annual membership with student and classroom materials, professional development, coaching, and posters. The ongoing cost is approximately $48,157.40 for curriculum and ongoing PD each year thereafter. Grant funding and other sources will be used for Leader in Me. Grant funding for Leader in Me is anticipated to be approximately $35,000 for professional development and $29,000 for materials and supplies during year one. This has been reviewed by Student Services and Business Services.
Discussion or motion?
I move we approve 6.2 as presented.
I'll second.
I just, for a little bit of discussion with this, last year when we did this was the thing I couldn't remember that we do well. We have a good processes with our community and our teachers for finding solutions. This school district identified that we had a problem coming out of COVID with discipline in our middle school. And they didn't sit by. They got together, they said, hey, let's try this. They brought it to us. What we said at the board meeting last year was, okay, we're gonna approve this. Let's see how it works. What was it, 1,137 referrals down to, what is it? I've scrolled up. Down to 443. Wow. That is a big difference. And so, I do support us continuing this, but also continuing to monitor its impact as we go through the high school.
I would agree with that. I mean, it's about a 2/3 reduction in the behavioral incidents that we had last year. And I like the fact that there would be continuity to it. The same lessons that they learn in elementary school are reinforced in middle school and then again in high school at age-appropriate levels. So I think that's a benefit to having one program used throughout.
Yeah, this is one program used everywhere, and it's a good idea.
Yes.
Yes.
Carl Niederman?
Yes, with the 60% reduction, this program's doing great. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Moving on, 6.3, Student Services, American Red Cross Training Provider.
Thank you, Dr. Ahn and members of the board. Lake Havasu Unified School District is committing to creating safe learning environments for staff and students. Administration is seeking to expand this commitment through first aid CPR AED training. During the 23-24 school year, LHUSD received over $62,000 in competitive grant funding from the Arizona Department of Education to fund necessary training and equipment for staff and students. This has included the purchase of over 100 Stop the Bleed kits, 2 Stop the Bleed training kits, 3 new AEDs, new AED batteries and pads for current AEDs, health office consumables, QPR gatekeeper training so that QPR gatekeeper training so that each site has a certified youth suicide prevention trainer, and capacity building training for staff relating to bullying prevention and student safety. LHUSD has partnered with the American Red Cross to provide hands-only CPR training to 7th graders at Thunderbolt and a fire safety program to students at Jamaica Elementary School that will be expanding to other sites in the next year. The next step in our commitment is to become a licensed training provider through the American Red Cross. This will allow district staff to offer Medicaid and public school-approved training to staff rather than using a third-party instructor. There is no cost to the district for the agreement, and the agreement will result in anticipated cost savings of $17 per person trained in CPR first aid AED during the first year and $50 per person trained during the second and third years of the agreement.
Discussion or a motion?
This is going to teach a student how to use an AED.
So this agreement will allow staff to be trained on how to use CPR, first aid, and AEDs, but we can also offer the hands-only life-saving measures as well to students.
That's good. I move we pass it as presented.
I'll second.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
And now what we're all here for. Business service, LHUSD number 1, facility use manual, 2024-25.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, board members. Information pertaining to the scheduling of district facilities, appropriate use of district facilities, use fees, etc., are contained within the district facility use manual. The governing board approves the facility use manual, including fees on an annual basis. The governing board may grant uncompensated use of facilities, not including required personnel or utility charges, to individuals or groups who support the educational function of the district. Should the governing board grant uncompensated use, a list of individuals or groups and any approved dollar amounts and/or stated conditions will be referenced in the meeting minutes of the governing board meeting in which uncompensated use was approved. The district's facility use manual is attached to this action item with the proposed changes for the July 1, 2024 to June 30th, 2025 year. You can see, as listed in the action item, the proposed change is changing auditorium director at $40 an hour to PAC audiovisual technician at $50 an hour.
Discussion or a motion?
I do have a motion to make, but I'm going to hold off on a minute because it's slightly revised from what's presented. I believe all of our board members received an email from the Little League coordinator. Okay. So the request from the Little League was for the Little League to also receive some amount of uncompensated use. And I'm inclined to agree with them, not to the extent that some of our other clubs receive. So our sports clubs that directly provide off-season training to our high school athletes, our Fever Volleyball, Fearless Wrestling, and Havasu Heatwave Wrestling, they work directly with students and provide training during the off-season. Little League does not do that. Little League does not work directly with our high school students in the same way that those other clubs I just mentioned do. However, they do work with a lot of students who will go on to compete in our middle school athletics or in our high school clubs. And so I do think it's worth it to us to provide them a cost break in some amount to sort of accommodate them and make those fields usable for them.
And David Moore, the coordinator, couldn't be here tonight, and he said he was okay with me sharing. I'm kind of for giving him the same deal as the other 501Cs for facility, the same deal. One thing I do want to ask a lot of you who are here, did the deal work last year?
Yes.
I wonder, and if it didn't, I'd love to hear it right now, because we worked so hard. Worked 2 years to get that done.
Please don't change it.
We don't want to change it. We don't want to.
I just said a prayer of thanks.
Yeah. But yeah, we think it worked well. We didn't hear that there were any issues from the community. We just really just want to add on the Little League to that same type of deal that you all had.
Yeah.
So that's what I would propose.
Agreed.
My son James pitched in Little League. He came up into the high school and immediately transferred into the high school. So Little League helped him get the high school job. He could throw an 83-mile-an-hour pitch based on his Little League work.
Nice. Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about, where we know that that's kind of a training ground for the future. Yeah. And then at least from my point of view as a board member, I felt like it was a very mutually beneficial relationship. We have the PACE Club, we have different arts clubs like the Symphonic Winds and the orchestra that provide sort of supplemental education to our students. We know that there's a need for that we kind of live in well, we live in a literal desert, but also kind of a cultural one in some ways. And so you provide some of those extras that make learning fun and provide kind of opportunities that they would not have, that our schools would not be able to provide if it was just up to us. And so thank you for doing that. We really appreciate your community involvement. So,
Are you okay to make the motion?
yes, I
with
will make the motion.
And do you have it with the Little League in there?
I do. I made a little modification. Okay, so my motion would be to continue the credit of $4,000 per named group to be used for uncompensated facility use of district facilities, excluding fees for utilities and professional services provided by the district for the following specific groups: Lake Havasu Community Concert Association, Lake Havasu Ballet, Lake Havasu Community Choir, Lake Havasu Regional Orchestra, Lake Havasu Symphonic Winds, PACE, Little League, and Special Olympics, providing they submit their 501c3s. These funds will be pooled together so the funds can be shared amongst the named groups. In addition, uncompensated facility use will be granted for the feeder sports programs that exclusively serve LHUSD students, and that includes Beaver Volleyball, Fearless Wrestling, and Havasu Heatwave Wrestling.
I will second that motion. You had the hard work.
And then I just want to have one more thing to add. So with the Little League using the fields, I just want to make sure that this doesn't create sort of an extra financial burden for our district. I mean, we've already opened up the school grounds for daylight use to the public. And as far as groundskeeping goes, we would still, whatever scheduling we have for mowing the fields, that would just remain, correct?
Yeah, none of the operations part of the district as far as scheduling for groundskeeping will be impacted whatsoever. It's all after hours, so we're just fine.
Okay.
And they were just talking about 2 elementary schools for this upcoming year.
That's correct.
And if they want the fields limed, they will do that themselves?
Yes, so they will either do that themselves or that will be part of the additional compensation that they would pay for professional services.
Okay.
Dr. Arana?
Yes.
Lisa Ramon?
Yes.
Kyle Niederman?
Yes.
John Masky?
Yes.
Moving on, 6.5, Business Services, fiscal year 25 proposed budget.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Board members, ARS 15-905 requires each district to annually prepare a proposed budget no later than July 5th and furnish it to the Arizona Department of Education. After approval by the governing board, the proposed budget summaries and notice of public hearing will be published on the ADE website. The public hearing and meeting to adopt the budget is scheduled for July 9th, 2024. And I have a presentation for you. Let's pull it up here. So the purpose, Arizona Revised Statute 15-905, as mentioned in the action item, is the reason why we're here tonight. The proposed budget presentation will consist of budget forms, reports, average daily membership calculations, budgeted expenditures and fund balances, and then an area for questions and fiscal transparency. And the budget forms, again, this is just a very pulled out view of the long budget form. This is kind of the back end of the forms that are in front of you tonight that actually populate the state budget form. So many points of data are put into these spreadsheets and then eventually submitted to the state. So the reports here on the summary page, varying reports for average daily membership and special education services, English language learner, transportation. All of that kind of comes together into a main report, a 55-1 report, and then we then come with the actual calculated number of what our budget would look like. So average daily membership, the reports from the BSA 55-1 are used to then populate the unweighted student count part of the state form. You can see that the top snippet there in the upper left-hand corner is a screenshot of a small section of the BSA 51, the BSA 55-1 report, and then I take that information and then populate it into the spreadsheet. You can see that where the arrows are for the fiscal year 24, this current fiscal year, 100th day average daily membership is shown there. And then in that area just below that on line 3, this is our forecasted estimation of what our enrollment will look like in fiscal year 25. So with current year funding now and what we use the current year funding model to actually set our budgets for the next fiscal year, we are estimating what our enrollment's going to look like months in advance before the school year even begins. So there's some challenges in and of itself just with that new model of budgeting and setting a budget for school districts. In years past, we used previous year's number, the prior year numbers, to actually set the budget for the next fiscal year. So we actually had hard numbers to work with. The next slide is calculations tab that we use for populating the budget forms. This is interesting for this particular year, and it seems like it's getting worse every year. So this year, where we are today, I'm putting a proposed budget in front of you with fiscal year 24 numbers because the state, as Carol Nowakowski mentioned earlier, the state has yet to approve a fiscal year 25 budget. So in this budget for fiscal year 25, we're using fiscal year 24 numbers, and depending on how far we're off, I will probably be back before you in September with a budget revision, as will most districts in the state, to shore up and get us close to where we should be using actual fiscal year 25 information. Hopefully I'm not too far off to where I don't have to do that and bring this back before you in September, because it's a lot of work on my end. Not that I don't mind doing it, but I really don't like having to do things multiple times when we can just do it right the first time. Unfortunately, that's not where we're at today. So using the amount of $4,914, that's the fiscal 24 base level amount. And when you go to the next slide, you can see the calculations page. This is where using average daily membership, which is student enrollment, and we multiply that by that base support number that I showed you just on the previous slide. This is where we start to get our budget and where that number actually comes together. So we take our number of preschool kids, our K-8 kids, our 9 through 12 kids. The state gives them a weighted support because they know that it costs a little bit more money to educate preschool kids versus K-8 kids, but it costs a little more to educate a high school student rather than an elementary student. So the state has this funding formula where they weight these different groups with a little extra multiplier for each student, which then provides a little bit of additional funding. The area down on the bottom 2/3 below that black line, that's the subgroups or Group B weighted groups. These are students who qualify for special services of some kind, whether they be an English language learner, K3 reading. The state allows for extra multipliers or weights given to all K3 students because of the focus on reading at the earlier years of their academic career. And then below that, you see all different types of identifiers for students that have special needs, whether they qualify for hearing impairment or visual impairment or other types of special needs and special services. That obviously requires additional resources to help and assist those students, so the state provides another weighted support for those particular students to provide a little bit of additional funding. And that's what this page right here speaks to. The following slide, it's again calculations continued as we take our average daily membership and all of the weighted factors and weighted groups that were listed on the previous slide. You then take that total weighted count on the right-hand side, multiply it by the base support level. Again, we're using fiscal year 24 numbers. And then the teacher experience index, that is a multiplier that takes our teacher population and that compares that teacher population and their experience level and compares it with the state. In our particular case, we are just under the average experience in the state, so we are just at like a 0.9 factor. But because we're below the state average, they don't penalize us for that, so our multiplier is just a 1. So we don't lose money because our teachers are slightly less experienced as a group than the state average. That has been increasing over the last few years. I've seen that slowly start to creep back up, and we're getting closer to that 1.0 true number. Years and years ago, we were a little north of that. So if we're at 1.1, let's just say, we actually get a little bit more money for that 0.1 that's above the state average. But for the last quite a few years, we've been just under the state average. So we haven't lost money, but we have not captured additional funds because of that. The next slide is a calculation slide again for district additional assistance. This is determined again preschool, kindergarten through 8th grade, and 9 through 12, those 3 red boxes at the top. When we take the average daily membership and we get $549-ish, right around $600 for 9 through 12 students. When you take those dollar amounts and multiply it by the average daily membership or our student counts, that provides additional funds, which is called district additional assistance. And years ago, that was referred to as capital money. Now the state provides district additional assistance and allows districts to determine whether or not they want to use it for capital needs or move it to the general operations side of the budget for salaries and benefits and extras that are more on the maintenance and operations side of the budget. We as a district over many, many years have kept that on the capital side of the budget because we have capital needs. We have equipment that fails and buses to replace and vehicles and air conditioners and all of those things that are more capital in nature, equipment in nature, furniture, etc. So we try to keep those monies on the capital side of the budget so we don't mix it and commit those to salaries moving forward. Once we commit that to salaries, we'll never get it back. So you can see at the very bottom of the slide, kind of a historical view. When I first came here, DAA money was reduced by, I want to say it was 85%. So the state had a automatic reduction. When I did this, my first budget that I put together, I looked at it and said, all right, we're going to get several $1 million in capital. Then the very next line, it says budget reduction, 85%. And you see there in fiscal year 18, we qualified for several $1 million and we only got $316,000 back then because of that 85% reduction that the state put on everyone's funding across the whole state. You can see that historical data, though. I like to put that there because it actually puts a smile on my face because I remember the frowny face I had in fiscal year 18 when I saw all this money and then I lost 85% of it. Now we are fully funded. There's no more reduction at the moment, and hopefully it stays that way. And we are actually producing some capital reserves, which is very good and healthy for the district, so we can make informed decisions as we move forward. The next slide, again, calculations continue. This is where page 7 of the actual budget forms kind of shows a summary of the maintenance side of the budget, maintenance and operations side, and the capital side. You can see that in column A and B on the right side of the screen. When we take the average daily membership, that student count, and we multiply it against the base support level. Again, this year we're using fiscal year 24 so far at the moment. It produces, when we capture our carry forward or savings that we've had that has been there for quite some time now. We are at just over $52 million in maintenance and operations budget capacity. And then on the capital side of the budget, we are at about $3.2 million that we will receive for this year for additional capital expenditures. Now that will be added to any carry forward that we have that you'll see here on an upcoming slide. The next slide shows our budgeted expenditures. This is the maintenance and operations side of the budget. So this is page 1 in the actual state budget form. You can see that maintenance and operations, we have differing columns of salaries and benefits and purchase services, supplies. All of these expenses are uniquely coded based on the USFR and the chart of accounts, so that everything we do has a unique account code attached to it for transparency and accountability, so that people can see exactly where monies are spent and how they're spent. So in this particular budget, if you look on the bottom right-hand corner in the red circle, that is the $52 million figure that we saw on the previous slide. What this is showing is that our budget capacity is recognized, our full budget capacity, by accounting for every penny that's available to the district. So if I do not budget to our full capacity, then we leave money on the table and we don't capture that. So we want to make sure we capture every bit that's available to us, and then we come to you all throughout the year, and any expenditures that are more than $100,000 or cumulative of $100,000 or more comes to you, so that comes to the public, so they see exactly how our monies are being expended. At the very bottom of that slide, kind of see it there, the examples, it just kind of gives the public, I know you've all seen this at least a half a dozen times, and you can see exactly what each column represents. So 6,100 is basically your salaries and stipends, 6,200 is your medical insurance and payroll type taxes, and so on and so forth. So that way, just a little bit of a key down there at the bottom. So should anyone have a question or flip through this and look through it in the community, they can kind of look and say, oh, okay, I can see what the purchase services represents or what the supplies represent. So it's just a basic key there to give some people some basic information, a little bit of insight. Next slide is budgeted expenditures. This is page 8 of the budget form. This is the capital side of the budget, that column, that far right column that we saw 2 slides ago. So you can see that green circle, that 3.2 million, that was the money that we will recognize as additional monies given to the district for fiscal year 25 for capital related items. When you look at that whole entire column there on the right hand side, all of those figures, we're projecting once we receive that additional 3.2 million this next fiscal year, that we'll have roughly $10 million in spending capacity in capital. So as we see and recognize, and I'll point that out here in a second again, as we recognize our healthy fund balances, I will share with you the narrative that's optional that we include in these forms as to the why behind our healthy fund reserves. And I think that most people, I think, would agree with the mindset. Others may not, because they want to spend, and so do I, but I want to make sure we have a healthy plan, forward thinking, to spend those reserves. The next slide is just the 610 capital budget, just broken out, very similar to the other page 2, or the other slide, or 2 slides ago, where you had that big 6,100 and 6,200 spreadsheet. This is the exact same thing, just modified for capital purchases. So you can see at the bottom right-hand corner, just like 2 slides ago, that $10 million for capital is fully recognized and fully accounted for in our budget. So that way we capture every dollar that's available to us based on current day numbers. The next slide, this is our classroom site funds page. This is what's referred to as 301. This is additional teacher compensation for those teachers who qualify for these funds. There are additional requirements for teachers, certain performance, a certain performance level they have to hit to qualify for these expenditures. It's not impossible by any means, but it's additional. It's not just a give me. It's not just handed to them. So this, by way of statute, comes to all districts who so choose to utilize these funds. You can see here in the red circles that we'll have about $6 million available for next fiscal year to expend and to distribute to qualified teachers who actually are qualified to receive these funds, which is, again, almost all of them. So this last year, fiscal year 24, for classroom site funds, it was about $14,000 that teachers received for classroom site funds. So it's definitely something that's well deserved for them, as that assists them in their needs. The next slide, just a summary slide of budgeted expenditures. This is a lot of additional funds that we manage as we receive revenues and we expend money. There are many different funds that are used to earmark and to show where those expenditures actually took place. For example, for most people here tonight, Fund 515, line 6 on the right-hand side is Civic Center. When people use the PAC or use our facilities, when they pay to have professional services within their events, like a custodian or the individual who's running sound and lights in the Performing Arts Center, those monies are deposited into the Civic Center Fund, and then they're expended appropriately out of the Civic Center Fund. So those don't commingle with the General Maintenance and Operations Fund. It's a set aside specifically established for facility use, for example. So this is just a sheet full of different funds that we manage within the district, and all districts do the same. So this is new for this year. The Auditor General put this out there, which I like it. I don't like filling it out, but I do like it as far as transparency goes. The only issue though is most of these numbers are estimates. So, and they even had some wording at the top of this tab that said, remember, these are estimates. Fiscal year 24 is not completely over yet. We still have an encumbrance period in which funds are still received after June 30th, or expenses are still made after June 30th. So there's some movement that still takes place. What I like about it most of all is the fact that there's an option to comment, and down there on that far left column down below, bottom left column or bottom left area, that's the comment section. And let's see if I have a bigger copy of that here where I could read it. So this is what I put. Again, this is optional. Man, mine's just as small. So in summary, what it says.
If you want,
I could blow it up here.
I know, I was blowing mine up.
Yeah, I could do that here too. All right. Yeah, you can. Okay, so what I put is the district has a short-term and long-term perspective to address immediate needs and multi-year financial stability. The district recently dealt with the reality of an expired override, the final issuance of bond funds, and expiring federal funding relating to COVID-19. The district's fund balances are providing stability during these transitions, while planning and timing for future funding renewals, override, etc., take place, all while being mindful of economic and political realities. And I think that's something that is a big takeaway. Case in point, we're here tonight putting a proposed budget in front of you with fiscal '24 numbers. So we're in just the reality of just a lot of uncertainty in the world today. And we plug through it and we do the best we can and being optimistic as much as we can. But knowing that having a healthy reserve allows us to weather the storms that everyone encounters today. It's not just unique to school districts. So that's I think the highlight of this page is, yes, we have fund balance, and that's great. We can have a much different conversation, and a lot of districts are having that conversation right now of dealing with negative fund balances or where they're eating up all of their carry forward, and now where do I go? I'm grateful that we're at this point. I think as we have proven over the last year or two, we've been a little bit more aggressive in our compensation schedule for staff. I think there was room to do that because of planning ahead and having a plan over these many years. The state has given generously over the last few years with the 20 by 2020 initiative. I mean, the state has done things. I mean, they have stepped up over the years, but it's just a roller coaster ride. So that's what we have for the fund balance section. Again, added, it's new this year from the Auditor General. The two more slides here, maybe three. This is just the cover page. This is the cover page of the proposed budget that goes to the state. It shows the property tax rate calculations on the far right. Again, trying to put property tax information out there with 24 numbers is difficult. We anticipate that the state is mandated, unless they find a way around it, to fund inflation. So it's 2% or whichever. 2% is the most they would give. So if inflation was 8% in the country, they only fund 2%. If inflation was 1%, they only fund 1%. So it's 2% or less than that. So we're anticipating 2% as the inflation factor to our base support. I kind of calculated that in there, trying to just get a little ahead of the state, because I have to set these numbers, and we're here tonight, and that's why the numbers are there before you. 2.99 for primary tax, 0.49 for our bonds that we have for debt service. So a slight decrease, but our property valuations are increasing. So that's why you see those numbers come down a little bit. As property values rise, typically the rate goes down, but we're still in the end paying the same. The next slide, just a reminder, I mentioned it in the action item, that July 9th at 6 p.m. at this point is the public hearing and budget adoption scheduled. So you'll basically see a much quicker version of what I just gave tonight to kind of summarize this should not change. So basically what's proposed is what's presented for adoption. This just gives the community and people time to look at it if they want, ask questions if they have any questions. And then there's a public hearing at 6 p.m. And then right after the public hearing portion of the governing board meeting, we roll right into the action item for the board to take action on the budget. And then the last page, fiscal transparency. The slide that I had on here before in May was the old website, because we just went through a change in our website. So this is the latest and greatest right here. This is what you see when you click on financial transparency. Click on budget and financial documents. What you see tonight and the actual budget forms that go to the state will be right there for the public to view. You could always look on the Department of Education's website, and they also have links that are available for all districts for you to click on and walk through any budget that you would like. So that's what I have for you this evening.
Discussion or a motion?
I'll move to approve 6.5, but I did want to say, I appreciate the fact that you drew attention to the financial transparency part of this. I think that that's one thing that our district does very well, and I credit the business services department. Our numbers are available for anyone to see. You don't, I mean, you could meet with someone in the district if you wanted to discuss them, but you don't have to do that. You also can just look at your own convenience at whatever you want to know about our finances. It's all there for you. So thank you for putting those together. And I didn't really have anything else.
And I'll just kind of add on just a little bit. I think you're doing a marvelous job, but you don't have to take our word for it, because the state auditors, our auditors, and the Auditor General report are out, and then that's also public for folks to see for the state. They verify what you're saying as far as how well we do. So I guess we're at the point, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
I also want to thank you for keeping everything out on the internet. That's been my big thing, is to make sure everything gets put on the website. Now that we still got it up there, I'm happy to see that.
Dr. Ron?
Yes.
Ms. Ramon?
Yes.
Kyle Niederman?
Yes.
John Massey?
Yes.
Moving on, 6.6 Business Services, 2024-25 School Meal Prices.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, board members. USDA requires that there is equity in school lunch pricing, a provision that requires school districts to charge students for paid meals at a price that is on average equal to the difference between free meal reimbursement and the paid meal reimbursement. Schools that currently charge less for meal prices than the amount needed to create paid lunch equity are required to gradually increase prices over time until they meet the requirement or supplement their food service operating funds with non-federal funds to ensure equity. A historical look at prices for breakfast and lunch are as follows. You can see an increase of 10 cents to lunch prices and 10 cents to breakfast from 23-24 to next fiscal year 24-25. So that is the recommendation in front of you, to increase breakfast and lunch by 10 cents each.
Discussion or motion?
I'll move to approve 6.6.
I'll second it with letting everybody know that our president of the country is a big part of this increase.
So one thing I did want to say, so with school lunch prices and everything, if you think you might qualify for free and reduced, or even if you're not sure if you would, please fill out the paperwork that comes home with your student at the beginning of the school year. That Title I paperwork really does help our schools out, and it helps you out. So please fill out those forms when they come through. Even if you're not sure if you would qualify, please fill them out anyway.
Dr. Ron?
Yes.
Ms. Ramon?
Yes.
Kyle Niederman?
Yes.
John Massey?
Yes.
6.7 Business Services, District Standardized Apparel Annual Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, board members. On May 17th, 2021, the district issued an invitation for bid for district standardized apparel. On June 15th, 2021, the governing board approved an annual district standardized apparel contract with Natural Tees for the 2022 school year, with the option of up to 4 annual renewals. This would be the third of 4 possible renewals of the contract. Natural Tees confirmed that there will not be an increase in apparel pricing for the 25 school year, fiscal year 25 school year.
Discussion or motion?
I move that we approve it as presented.
I'll second.
The only thing I always say on these renewals, any reason that we would have not to renew? It's been good.
Yeah,
last year.
Performance is great. The only time that we really would entertain the option to not renew is either performance or pricing.
Okay, thank
So they're holding on their pricing, and their performance has been good.
Perfect.
Dr. Ron?
Yes.
Ms. Ramon?
Yes.
Kyle Niederman?
Yes.
John Massey?
Yes.
Moving on, 6.8, Business Services, CPA Auditing Services, Annual Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Governing Board members, on February 7th, 2022, the district released a request for proposal for CPA auditing services. On April 19th, 2022, the Governing Board awarded Heinfeld Meach the contract for CPA auditing services, which included an option of up to 4 annual renewals. This is the second of 4 possible annual renewals. The cost proposal from the RFP is attached, reflecting the cost of $52,550 for auditing services for the fiscal year end of June 30th, 2024.
Discussion or motion?
I'll move to approve 6.8.
I'll second that with the understanding that my dad was a CPA.
I'll ask the same question, though, as we did of the T-shirts.
Yep, they perform very well.
Dr. Rohr?
Yes.
Lisa Roman?
Yes.
Kyle Niederman?
Yes.
John Master?
Yes.
Moving on, 6.9, Business Services, Annual Inspections, LHHS, Thunderbolt, Jamaica, and Smoke Tree Chillers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Governing Board members, annual inspections of chiller systems at both Lake Havasu High School and Thunderbolt Middle School are proactive measures being requested by the District Maintenance Department. Thorough analysis of equipment functions can assist in early detection of potential mechanical issues and reduce the possibility of complete mechanical failure and shutdown of equipment. While machinery can fail without notice, proper preventative maintenance protocols can increase the longevity of equipment and hopefully provide awareness of potential mechanical issues, allowing time to properly plan and schedule needed repairs. Johnson Controls was procured through state contract. They have provided a contract for 5 years to guarantee pricing as follows. You can see the pricing listed there, each of the 5 years for the 4 schools. This will be year 3 for Lake Havasu High School and Thunderbolt, and year 2 for Jamaica and Smoke Tree. Purchasing and maintenance have reviewed this item.
Discussion or motion?
Did we just redo Jamaica?
Did we just redo the chiller at Jamaica?
Yeah.
We did the chiller at Jamaica a couple years ago.
Okay.
With the cooling tower, we did 2 years ago.
Okay.
Not the chiller, but the cooling tower.
I'll move to approve 6.9.
I'll second. Just a quick note, I appreciate being, this is one thing about the district. Before, I think we were all here a long time ago. It was just fix them when they go down. We're to the stage now of good financial management that we can actually save money by doing maintenance. So I appreciate that.
What's that saying? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So that's the one that applies here.
That's right.
Dr. Rohr?
Yes.
Lisa Roman?
Yes.
Kyle Niederman?
Looking at the proposal, absolutely yes.
John Master?
Yes.
Moving on, 6.10, Business Services, Smoke Tree Elementary and Smoke Tree Preschool Renovations, Sole Source Construction Administration.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Governing Board members, EMC2 provided architect services and developed drawings and blueprints for the building and site improvement projects that were recently approved for construction at Smoke Tree Elementary and Smoke Tree Preschool at the May 14th, 2024 Governing Board meeting. Prior to the new fiscal year, EMC2 could be procured through the 1GPA cooperative. However, the contract expired. They are able to be procured through the SAVE contract. However, the SAVE contract is limited to SFB or SFD projects only. Sole source procurement is requested due to continuation of work and maintaining continuity of architectural drawings and services as this project moves to the construction phase. As part of transitioning from design to the construction phase of a project, EMC2 provides construction administrative services. CA services are provided to ensure contractors and the district receive information and interpretation of the drawings and blueprints through request for information submittals. During the construction process, challenges often present themselves. Changes to design or materials are proposed to address unforeseen obstacles. Value engineering or cost savings alternatives are sometimes recognized. and additional improvements are at times needed to better address short and long-term needs. Construction administration from the architect allows for continued architect engagement throughout the project to update drawings to address requested changes, as well as provide needed information and design clarification. The construction administration proposal of $89,931 is attached. Bond capital and/or other allowable funds will be used. This item has been reviewed by purchasing.
Discussion or motion?
I move we approve it as presented.
I'll second.
Dr. Ron?
Yes.
Lisa Roman?
Yes.
Kyle Niederman?
Yes.
John Maston?
Yes.
Moving on, 611, Business Services, Smoke Tree Elementary, Playground Equipment Structures, and Safety Surfaces.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Governing board members, as part of the district's commitment to construct, remodel, and renovate school facilities, as communicated to voters and identified in the November 2016 bond voter pamphlet, the district is recommending the replacement of the upper, lower, and preschool playground equipment structures and safety surface materials at Smoke Tree Elementary at a not-to-exceed cost of $550,000. In May of 2020, the governing board approved the replacement of playground equipment structures and safety surface materials at Oro Grande Classical Academy and Starline Elementary. In 2022, the safety surface material at Jamaica Elementary was replaced during the remodel and renovation work at this campus. In April 2023, the governing board approved the replacement of playground equipment structures and safety surface materials at Havasupai Elementary. And in June 2023, the governing board approved the replacement of playground equipment structures and safety surface materials at Nautilus Elementary. Smoke Tree is the remaining elementary school to receive playground improvements. ExerPlay will be procured through the 1GPA cooperative contract. A quote for purchasing equipment, school safety material, installation, equipment design, and a digital rendering for both the upper, lower, and preschool playground areas are included in the action item. Bond capital and/or other allowable capital funds will be used to install playground equipment and safety surface materials. This item has been reviewed and approved by purchasing.
Discussion or motion?
I move we approve 611 as presented.
I'll second.
Dr. Ron?
Yes.
Lisa Roman?
Yes.
Kyle Niederman?
Yes.
John Maston?
Yes.
612, Business Services, Annual Fundraiser Type Student Activities.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President and governing board members. The Uniform System of Financial Records, or USFR, states the governing board approves student activity fundraising events. A list of student activity fundraiser types for the fiscal year 25 school year is included in the action item. The governing board further delegates the authority to the district administration to approve the individual dates and student activity clubs to hold the fundraisers. And the list of fundraising types are listed within the action item.
Discussion or motion?
I move that we approve 612 as presented.
I'll second.
Dr. Ron?
Yes.
Lisa Roman?
Yes.
Kyle Niederman?
Yes.
John Maston?
Yes.
613, Business Services, Resolutions, Fiscal Year 2024-25.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, governing board members. Resolutions 2024-25-01 through 2024-25-10 are necessary to continue our current practices through the 24-25 fiscal year. The resolutions as submitted are maintenance resolutions. It would not affect any substantial change in our current operating procedures. And I'd like to just point out that the only difference between what we're doing today versus years past, one of the resolutions, the county resolution for the line of credit, we typically have that change every year. For whatever reason, Wells Fargo went to the county and extended the current line of credit through the end of the calendar year. So they extended it's basically an 18-month contract now, and so the county didn't have to submit anything. We didn't receive anything. Wells Fargo is doing this on their own in partnership with the county. So around December, I don't know if it'll be November or December, maybe the January meeting, I'll come back before you with an updated resolution for the new line of credit.
That's good news.
Discussion or motion?
I move to approve 6.13.
I'll second that.
Dr. Rohr?
Yes.
Lisa Romo?
Yes.
Carl Niederman?
Yes.
John Master?
Yes.
Business services, vouchers, student activity funds, and auxiliary funds.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Governing Board members, approval for vouchers, student activity funds, and auxiliary funds for May of 2024 are included within this action item.
Discussion or motion?
I move that we approve it as presented.
I'll second.
Dr. Rohr?
Yes.
Lisa Romo?
Yes.
Carl Niederman?
Yes.
John Master?
Yes.
Whew. Need a drink, Mike?
Oh.
That was long. You got a lot to do. On to informational, superintendent.
Summer school has started, so we have lots of fun activities going on in our schools, everywhere from kindergarten boot camp, kids who have not ever been to school before, enjoying time with their teachers, all the way through our elementary, middle school, and some high school classes as well. I heard today some students are not very happy with their parents that they signed them up for smart math so they could get ahead of the math program, but they're learning some great things. And I also just wanted to thank everybody that's here tonight. I know that when we talk facility use manual, it's concerning, but I want you to know that this board, as well as all of us as the directors and the leadership team, appreciate what you do in our community and for our kids. So we're very excited that this was a collaborative effort and we continue to work together. So thank you very much. Other than that, I hope everyone is enjoying their summer vacation.
Any informational from governing board members? I just want to have a quick thing just to remind everybody. Everybody thinks teachers have summer off. I want to remind you, Dr. Stone said some things about what teachers are doing, but here are some more. We've got the Minions traveling in Boston, so there's teachers with them there. We've got ETG are they in Puerto? If you've been following that in the paper or online, they're there. And ETG for the middle school is,
Also.
yeah, where are they at?
They were in Florida.
They're in Florida, doing a science thing, right? A science thing. See, I actually wrote this down. Musical theater is in Oklahoma City. FBLA will be in Atlanta. We've got folks in summer school. We've got folks working with Parks and Recs. Teachers are doing professional development during the summer, both on their own dime and sometimes getting paid, sometimes not. And a lot of teachers are working other jobs just because they have to because of their situation. So I just wanted to mention that since it is summer. Board agenda suggestions for future agenda items. Nope, then I will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Dr. Rohr?
Yes,
Lisa Romo?
Yes.
Carl Niederman?
Yes.
John Master?
Yes.
we are adjourned.